Hi, and welcome to the Game Week 3 preview, where first we look back at Game Week 2 and all of the matches, the key stats and positions to give us an idea of how we can approach Game Week 3. So let's do this first by looking at the overall stats. All of these stats, by the way, are taken from Fantasy Football Scout Premium Members area, where you can sign up through their website or in the link down below. So we'll start with the XG overachievers and underachievers. With XG underperformers, it's no surprise to see Mitrovic and Rice at the top here, massively underperforming their XG because they both missed penalties. Interestingly here, you can see Soucek, who had a few chances inside the box and very close to goal as well. In that West Ham game, they had a high XG as a team, and I think Nottingham Forest were quite fortunate to get away with all 3 points there. Interestingly, though, Watkins and Rondon both being high here with some chances. I don't think we're going to be looking at these. Grosh as well, after his 2 goals at United, is up there too. He had a really great chance for about 7 yards out against Newcastle. Pope, by the way, had a fantastic game in that one. Gibbs White, Dakota, Reed, they were against each other, Wolves and Fulham, in that 0-0. And then you've got Partey and Havertz. But going to the overperformers, and it's the one who's already got a price rise for 4.5 million to 4.6 million. Josh De Silva at Brentford, who got let's just say, a fortunate goal. David De Gea easily should have saved that. But the fact that after a Saturday, his price goes up for someone who's probably just going to be on your bench, I think is a pretty strange one for the transfer market. But there we go. Højbjerg, the same there, getting a goal from outside the area. Interestingly, here's Martinelli massively performing his XG with just the 1 goal, but I think it's easy to say at 6.2 million now, he's probably going to be the best price player in the game, unless there's some ridiculous drop in form or Smith Rowe just for some reason kicks him out of the team, but I do not foresee that at the moment. Koulibaly with a great finish against Spurs. You can see Ings underperforming. I think both games he's not looked great. And De Bruyne looks like he's overperformed his XG here. But it was just the fact that he took a really world-class outside the boot finish. Maddison on this list as well. So these are the ones that are slightly overperforming. But the likes of De Bruyne, it classes as an overperformance of XG because that lovely outside of the boot goal was a very difficult technique and not the easiest to pull off. As we go on to shots, I think it's no surprise to see Gabriel Jesus here at the top. You see he had 7 shots with 3 on target. But honestly, I don't own Gabriel Jesus, so his 19 points was an absolute killer for me. Honestly, he could have had at least 3 goals. He at least should have got a hat-trick. A couple of good saves and a couple of near misses. He was phenomenal, and yeah, I don't really want to talk too much about him because it absolutely murdered me. Rodrigo against another pretty poor Southampton defense. Even though they fought back from 2-0 down, it's still not great. But there are goals that both of these teams can concede, and we'll have a look at that later. So not surprising, we can see Ronaldo here, 6 shots with 2 on target. We know Manchester United are in quite a bit of trouble at the minute. Going as well down, we'll just skip Williams for a second. De Bruyne, again, great finish, good opportunities. Is he worth 12 million over Haaland? And other players will know that. I think get a better idea of that coming up in the future. But going on to Williams, then 4 million. Mini Trent-like performance, a couple of really good balls in that wasn't taken. But you can see he's also getting shots here, 2 shots on target out of 4. Really good performance, a clean sheet. I think it was a 7-pointer he got yesterday, which is fantastic. Here, chances created, Kevin De Bruyne top against Bournemouth, no surprises here. Cresswell, so again, West Ham were putting up decent numbers. XG-wise, you've got Rice and Soucek were massively underperforming. As a team, their XG was incredibly high. It was over 2, and you can see Cresswell was putting some really good balls into the box for the likes of Soucek. So again, and Benrahma up here in 3rd place as well. So 5 for Cresswell, 4 for Benrahma. You can see that they were pretty unlucky to walk away from Forest with 0 points there. And then you can see Martinelli, even on the XG, he wasn't doing particularly great. In terms of creating chances, he was better in the Leicester game. And then, of course, Tony against that very, very poor first half performance from Manchester United. Again, there are no huge surprises when we look at team shots as well. City peppering that Bournemouth defence. In the first 10 minutes, it looked like it was going to be an absolute onslaught. Arsenal as well, scoring 4 goals against a poor Leicester defence. Brentford against a poor United defence. Nottingham Forest getting quite a few shots. You can see here 13 in total against West Ham. And then Brighton, who, again, I mentioned earlier, Pope had a really great game, but Brighton showing those old issues that they have about just sticking the ball in the back of the net. Again, creating chances. City, Arsenal at the top. Chelsea, who had, I think, a fantastic performance against Spurs. Really unlucky to walk away without all 3 points there. But we'll talk about that when we look at the match later. And again, West Ham creating those chances. But again, United up here with 13 chances. So defensively, not touching them, but in terms of attacking, Ronaldo getting some shots away and chances getting created. But I think we can all agree Manchester United is not a team you want to invest in right now. So we'll start in order of the matches that were played. So Aston Villa against Everton. This really came alive in the last 10 minutes of the game. But some interesting things then looking at the average positions that I want to point out. So first, this left-hand side here that we're going to look at first is Aston Villa. And something that stuck out to me were a couple of things. So one, you can see Tyrone Mings here plays a little bit deeper than his centre-half partner, Diego Carlos. And I feel as though sometimes this is an issue with Mings. And it always feels like if there's a tight offside that's a goal against them or an opportunity against them, Mings seems to play them on. Now, he is fast, but you know, I feel Premier League strikers are faster. So you can see that there's a time here that is, if you come across a player or a team that's great with over the top or through balls, think of, for example, a Spurs counter-attack against this Aston Villa side, then you can see some goals here, because if he's dropped back so far behind his defensive partner, it's going to cause a lot of problems there. And something else that stuck out with me with average positions is you can see that Philippe Coutinho is right next to the defensive mid Kamara. He didn't push forward as much as probably Villa would have liked, but when we look at the Everton positioning, you'll see why. And you can see here in the Cash versus Luca Digne, I know Luca Digne scored an own goal and he's trolled everyone again, but if you look at the right side, Cash is still on average in his own half, but you can see Luca Digne pairs up well with Ramsey, so it looks like you've got a McGinn-Cash pairing down the right side, which is a little bit deeper towards their own defense, but in terms of attack, you've got Ramsey and Luca Digne linking up further up the field, and then of course you've got Ollie Watkins here and Buendia when he came on, so they have that strike force. Feels like there's some gaps in midfield, but the big gap that I can see here is if a team has a good, strong right attack. So think of maybe Saka attacking this Aston Villa defense. Huge gaps here. Mings drops back, so it's a huge gap here in the left wing backs, left centre back space. So when I said earlier about Coutinho getting pushed back a little bit deeper than probably Villa would have liked, if you have a look at Everton, it's clear to see here they still definitely just don't have a striker. It's so crowded, and you can look at Gray here, Gordon here, and Dwight McNeil here. If we just go down, this is Everton. It's so crowded, so compact that you just don't have that striker that's giving them the outlet. Even though they did end up, in terms of goal threat towards the end when they're pushing, having more, but even their goal was pretty fortunate. It never truly felt for a time like they had chances. There was a ball that went into Gray at one point and he just sort of miscontrolled it. You can just see that they just don't have a striker. I think it's as simple as that. You'll also see as well, it's just compact in the middle here. You've got Cody and Tarkowski as the two centre-backs, and in front of them they're protected by Decore, and Iwobi's a little bit further forward. He's been fantastic. Iwobi, I thought, would be the weak link in the two-man midfield. I think he's, for the first 2 games, he's been Everton's best player. But you can see here, Patterson on the right wing-back and Mikalenko on the left wing-back. So even if they do, and Holgate's the back 3 here, they are pushing those wing-back forward. But it makes, one of these 3 needs to be further up. So again, I targeted Everton in game week 1 to get a clean sheet. If you're targeting at the moment against Everton's attack, so if you've got defenders against Everton, I think you can still feel pretty comfortable as long as it's a defense that you can trust. Let's say it's an Arsenal, a Chelsea, a Man City, a Liverpool defense. You be feeling pretty comfortable that you're going to get a clean sheet here. So the takeaways I think from this game is Everton clearly don't have an attack force, and there could be some gaps down the left-hand side of Aston Villa. So if you've got an attacking player playing on the right, there could be some spaces here. That's if Ming stays in the side. And I just wanted to reiterate the issue with Everton's attack. So here we can see passes. Yellow is unsuccessful, green is successful. And you can just have a look at Aston Villa. So down this, their left wing, you can see it would be a lot of Luka Dean and Ramsey connection that I spoke about earlier, and less so on the right because Cash and McGinn are a little bit deeper. But you can see there's still a lot of play just outside the 18-yard box. But if you look at Everton's side, there's just not a lot. There's some down the left wing and the right wing for Patterson and Mykolenko, but if you look at the centre attacking midfield and striker position, there's just not enough going on there. So again, if you're looking for a team to target with your defenders, I think Everton is definitely one that you can target there. So looking back at the Arsenal-Leicester game here, so one of the things people have been pointing out, for me, I went Saka over Jesus just because of the players I've got on the formation. I've got 3 strikers as it is, and that was the way. I still feel like Saka is a great option, but some people have been noticing that maybe Saka is playing a little bit deeper than you would like, or what you are used to from Saka. You can see here, it is slightly true, but not to an extent where it should worry you that much. Now, the point that I thought was the fact that Arsenal aren't really playing their first choice right back. So White is by trade a centre back. So maybe Saka has been asked to help the right back slot a little bit more than the likes of Martin on the other side. And I just think as an all-round player, Saka has played in that kind of right wing back slot before, and defensively, he's not that bad. Whereas Martinelli is kind of your more out-and-out attacking or striker-like midfielder. Saka getting asked to come back and help White at right back more seems to make more sense than asking Martinelli for Zinchenko, because Zinchenko doesn't need as much help. He's a pretty natural left back. So for those that are worried about Saka, he is a little bit deeper, but if Tomiyasu comes back in at right back, or the pushing against maybe a weaker side, so for example Bournemouth coming up next, I don't think they're going to ask or need Saka to come back as much. So if you're thinking about getting rid of Saka, I would give him the next game. If you're going to give a player a few games, remember the likes of Salah has ruined a lot of players for us, because we expect these players to be getting returns every game or every other game, but realistically for 8 million you should only be getting 1 or 2 returns every 3 games for that price. So have a little bit of patience. Maybe just if you're itching to get rid of him, if you know definitely what you're going to do, then of course go for it. But I will definitely be I won't be caving in and just quickly getting in Jesus and taking a -4 for Saka when they've got Bournemouth up next. I want to see Saka against Bournemouth and see if we can get some of last season's form that we saw. Something else that stood out to me about this Arsenal formation is going back to Saka being further back. You can see it is a little bit slanted in terms of you can see the right side, you've got Saliba, you've got White, and you've got Saka a little bit deeper, and then you've got the likes of Gabriel, Zinchenko and Martinelli pushing up, which shows that they are favouring that left side, which comes back to my point of White is not a natural right back, and he's certainly not really a right wing back, so they are focused towards that left-hand side. So again, if you've probably got 3 Arsenal players as it is, but if you're looking at a team that's weak down their own right side against this attacking left side, then you could be looking at a profit. So if there's teams that are conceding plenty of chances and opportunities down their right side, then Arsenal's left attack could pose a real threat against them. So looking at Leicester, we didn't really learn a lot about Leicester, I think, against Arsenal. It was just an absolute dominant display from the Gunners, and this kind of formation and average positioning of players just shows that they were under pressure. They're compact, they're deep. The furthest player forward is Maddison, who's still in the centre circle, there's not a lot to learn. We know their defence is weak. The goalkeeper made an error. We know they concede set-piece attempts and set-piece goals all the time. Though Leicester and Crystal Palace are pretty notorious for being poor at defending set-pieces. But for me, didn't learn a lot about Leicester. We know the problems that are there. So again, they're a team that can get goals. So if I've got defenders, I might be a little bit worried. But if I've got attackers against this Leicester defence, I would be pretty confident that I could be seeing a return from them. And the final note about this, about them being under pressure, it's not just you can see the average position of the Leicester players, but in terms of the XG, it was like let's have a look, 0.46. So they weren't even expected. They overperformed their goals by going ahead and getting 2. And the expected goals conceded, you can see, just under 3. So this was a pretty fair result. Gabriel Jesus could have got more. And the final point I like about this Arsenal structure is just how spaced out it is. There's boxes all over the place. You've got 4, 5, 8, and 7 all being able to pass to each other. You've got 8, 9, 11, and 34 passing to each other with Saka, with Zinchenko just behind Saka as support or on the overlap here. It's fluid. It's a good structure. There's space for the players, and there's boxes and triangles everywhere. So again, Arsenal, we knew preseason looked really good. Signings have been pretty good. So it's no surprise that you probably sat there with 3 Arsenal players. Brighton Newcastle won here 0-0. You can see XG for Brighton was 1.5 against Newcastle 0.22. Again, so what I seem to tend to find is a team that was more under pressure seems to be obviously deeper, but more compact to force the players out, the opposition out to the wing. And you can see here, Brighton, look how far up the pitch they are. You can see Trossard here, Welbeck there, Pascal Grosch and March with Lallana just behind him. So Lallana gets the ball. He's got 4 options in front of him all times. But it's just that age-old question. Like, we know it's not about the players at Brighton, it's about the structure, which is great. If a player like Bissouma leaves them or Cucurella leaves them, they can more easily replace them because it's about the structure and the team plan. But to an extent, they need the quality. I think that kind of structure plan from Potter and from Brighton is great, but not for a striker. That's when you need that clinical player. Maybe they just haven't found the right player there. It's been a couple of seasons now where defensively they've looked great. As a team, they've looked great, but they've just not put the ball in the back of the net. And partly that was due to a fantastic performance from Nick Pope, which I spoke about earlier. But going to the team, you can see here, St. Maximin and Wilson are almost playing in a 2 here. My man Almiron here was more towards the halfway line, but that was just down to the pressure of Brighton and the great team structure that they've got there on the South Coast. But something to learn from this game, we already know Brighton great defensively. So if you're going for like a Sanchez Ward rotation, or you're going for a Dunk 4.5 rotation defender or someone like that, great option. But attacking, they need to stick the ball in the net. So I'd only be looking at Brighton defensively. If I've got a player against Brighton, I'd be a little bit worried because we know how strong they are. But I'm also going to say the same thing about Newcastle. They were not troubled whatsoever last week against Nottingham Forest, but they were troubled a lot against Brighton. And despite Nick Pope playing well as a defense, they were incredibly strong. They didn't look too much on the rope. They had a couple of off-the-line clearances. So you can say Brighton are probably unlucky to not get 3 points here, but Newcastle do look like a pretty top defense. I would say a top 6 to top 8 defense here. So again, you've got Manchester City against Newcastle at Newcastle, with the fans all geared up and G'd up and supporting the tune again. But then you've got Liverpool going to Manchester United. If I would have said this a year or 2 years ago, hey, captain a player away to United rather than captain a City player away to Newcastle, you'd have thought I was crazy. But in the situation that we have now, I would say that, yeah, I'm probably going to be captaining Salah, not Haaland in my side, because Manchester United are a bigger train wreck, and Newcastle, since Eddie Howe's come in, have been really, really solid. Manchester City and Bournemouth, I don't think there's a lot we can get here. It's surprisingly low XG. But again, talking about the average positions and getting an idea about team structure, we're not going to learn a lot from this. You can see Manchester City here. The 2 centre-halves, Ake and Diaz, are the only people, and Edison, the goalkeeper, of course, are the only people inside their own half. Kyle Walker is in their half, and Cancelo. Now, I said earlier I wanted to look at Cancelo. Again, I didn't get him on my wildcard. I went for Edison. I went for Walker because I didn't want Cancelo as an inverted player playing centrally. So against West Ham, Walker was pretty much where he is now, just a tiny bit deeper. And Cancelo was parallel. He was where Ake is now, but a little bit forward in their half. And I thought, Cancelo's not going to be worth 7 million if he keeps doing that. Cancelo is dangerous when he's on the wing and he's cutting in from the side. He's back to doing that. He did that against Bournemouth. Maybe it's because they Man City gave a little bit more respect to West Ham and were a little bit more cautious about West Ham, especially because last season West Ham did a really good performance against Man City. But against weaker opposition, Cancelo's got that license again to get down that left wing, cut inside. He did exactly that, and he walked away with a clean sheet and an assist, a bonus as well. So, yeah, that I took the risk. I didn't go Cancelo. I thought the 10.5 million double up of Walker and Edison was great. They got me 12 points. Cancelo walks away with 11. That's just the way it is. But if Cancelo is against weaker teams on that left wing, he is back to being that fantastic option. You can see here, Haaland was actually not the furthest player forward. It was De Bruyne. Haaland, I think, only took 2 touches and 1 was an assist. The fewest touches a player has ever got in a Pep Guardiola Man City game. Yeah, it was simple. Come back to this massive low block from Bournemouth. Sitting, they've got one player in the whole team, and he's still in the centre circle. Kiefer Moore, you can see here, is the furthest man forward. Everyone else is back. It was damage limitation from like the first minute. So in terms of learning things about Bournemouth, they conceded 4 goals, but the XG wasn't that bad. You against Manchester City away from home. They kept Haaland quiet, but we're not going to learn a lot about this, I think. The key one here is Cancelo could be back to getting that left wing cutting inside rather than playing like a central defensive midfielder, which you don't want your player to do. You want them bombing down the wing and cutting it inside. So Southampton and Leeds now. Leeds 2-0 up, double from Rodrigo, who's gone up in price, and Aribo and Walker-Peters. Maybe you can say Meslier should have saved the goal from Walker-Peters, but let's just sort of stick to the facts right now. You can see here, XG, both of them over 1 goal. For me, I keep trying to pick on Leeds a little bit by saying sort of not target them, but definitely. So, for example, there's people suggesting, should I get rid of Mason Mount if you've got 2 free transfers? Maybe. But the thing about Leeds for me is they're going to concede goals. I keep saying it. They've got no Rafinha for creativity. That doesn't seem to stop them. They've scored 4 goals in 2 games, but they've also conceded 3 goals in 2 games against Wolves and Southampton, 2 of arguably the weakest attacks in the league. So without Calvin Phillips holding it up, and with tons of players still out injured or suspended, but mainly injury problems, the problem for Leeds might not be getting goals, definitely keeping them out. Southampton now conceded 6 goals in 2 games. So if we have a look here, Southampton changed their formation, I believe, part of the way through with 4 at the back. You can see Walker-Peters is up here. These average positionings will be a little bit more askew than a lot of others, because you can see here Leeds were 2-0 up in the 46th and the 60th minute. So the likes of Kyle Walker-Peters, he looks great here because you're thinking, wow, he's right wing back. He's all the way forward right next to Stuart Armstrong, and Shea Adams is just ahead of him. But that is because from the 46th minute, they're trying to get a goal back. You can see, though, that would leave some gaps here. But just for me, watching this game more than stat-wise, the first 2 game weeks, Southampton defence looks absolutely awful. It's leaky as hell, and Leeds is pretty much the same. They're getting the goals, but if you've got any player against Southampton or Leeds, I think you can feel pretty confident that you're going to be getting some attacking returns. So Wolves and Fulham, this one was a pretty drab affair. The XG for Fulham is a lot higher because they missed a penalty. We had 10 minutes of injury time. VAR, there was a pretty bad tackle from Mitrovic on Gibbs White in added time, so that's why that's stretched on a little bit there. But if we have a look here, even though the XG of Wolves is down, you can see Fulham were a lot deeper in this game. You can argue Wolves were maybe the better footballing side. The key takeaway from Wolves here is defensively they were fine, but the issue is still getting goals. A lot of people are sat there still with Neto. There was a position where he was on the left-hand side. He cut inside. The keeper had come out and he dinked over the top. There was no one there. Should have been a goal. But the problem is, a lot of the time with Wolves is we say the same thing. Very good defensively. They almost score. They almost get goals. You're probably going to be jumping off Wolves pretty soon, or you're going to be benching them. Now, if it's a situation that seems to be common, is you've got Neto and you've got Andres Pereira, and you've got Da Silva. And a lot of people are thinking of benching Neto for those players. They might come good. It might be a lot better when Raul Jimenez is back on the side. I don't think that Neto had a particularly bad game. I think he had a pretty good game. He just didn't take his chance. So I still think he's a better option than Andreas Pereira and Josh Da Silva. So don't think I'd be risking that. In terms of Bailey, he didn't even start. Then I wouldn't be going up to this 5.5 million. I think there's better options out there. I won't be surprised if jumping off Wolves, their attack, because the goals just aren't there. You look at Southampton, who gets 2 goals against that Leeds defense, and Wolves only get 1, despite having a pretty good game. They just can't put the ball in the back of the net. They're like Brighton, but worse to an extent. And going to Fulham, they were doing some pressing, but you see the compact here. It wasn't great. It was not the same team that played against Liverpool. Maybe it was because they were at home. Maybe it was because it was the opening day. Maybe because Liverpool were just really off the boil. But they were okay. They got a penalty. They didn't take it. It would have been... A 0-0 was a fair result in this game. Didn't learn too much about it. We've got a team that just defended and were compact, and a team that couldn't finish in Wolves, and that was it from this one. Just a further point about this game just being a drab 0-0, not a lot going on. Both teams not looking like they're going to score. This is the shot maps. You can see the best shots that they had were from way out the area, and if we look at the XG as well, there was a 0.5, I think, XG from Gibbs White here. And then, of course, you've got the 0.78 penalty from Mitrovic. But overall, Wolves, for being a good team and having good passing play, just that's it. That's the opportunities that you get against a newly promoted Fulham, who still concede against Liverpool. It's just not great. I've got Mitrovic myself and Pereira. They're great budget options. I don't think that's a problem. But looking at Wolves... defensively, okay for 4.5 million if that's what you like. But in terms of the attack, there's just nothing going on there. Going on to Brentford and Manchester United. Brentford's got a great run coming up. People bringing in Da Silva. Maybe defensively, if you want a 4.5 million rotation option, you've got the likes of me and I think is it Janssen as well, Pontus Janssen, and Rico Henry here, and Raya, the goalkeeper. If you want to invest in Brentford, defensively, I think fine. I also really like Mbeumo. I know he's a forward now, and he trolled a lot of people last year, but he is 6 million. He's the cheapest starting striker that you can get. With Brighton's run of fixtures coming up, which is like a sea of green against really weak defenses, and you want to save some money, or you just want that third playing striker, or you want to maybe go from a 5.5 million midfielder to a 6 million forward, I honestly think is a great option. You can see he's well up there in the attack. He's nailed in that starting 11 alongside Tony. I think it's a great option. Manchester United are just absolutely all over the place. You don't want to touch any of these players right now. I think the only positive I can take from this side is you can see here, number 20, Diogo Dalot, and 25, Jadon Sancho. They do have this kind of rapport. They played well together in pre-season. Defensively, can't keep a clean sheet. So Dalot looked like he was the best 4.5 million option pre-season, and linking it with Sancho is fine, but Sancho is just not delivering the goods whatsoever. It's all good being all flashy with these flicks and jinks around and stuff, but no final product from him at the moment. That's probably the only hope here. Picking apart this side, you can see there's no connection here between Shaw and Rashford. Rashford's coming in deeper, which means Shaw has to dominate this left side by himself. He gets the ball further up the field towards their goal, and Rashford's not near him. You've got Bruno next to Ronaldo. Ronaldo he just stands up front and wants you to stick the ball on his head. But another joke here is Christian Eriksen playing as like a central defensive CDM, central defensive midfielder next to Fred. Eriksen is a fantastic player that you want to push up and be your creative player, like next to Bruno. And playing him that deep is just not where he plays. Like, you're playing a great player. You've got a Ferrari and you've taken the engine out and you put a Skoda engine in there. I don't understand it. I don't know why Ten Hag's decided to do this formation and to put Eriksen back there, but that's the way it is. Martinez had an absolute stinker. And again, I don't want to bang on about his height, but here's the thing. And you don't want to just look at the physical stats of a player. Mental parts and things like the tackling and marking, of course, it's absolutely key. But every league and every division is slightly different. And the problem is, it doesn't matter how good he is at being a tackler or a marker or how good he is on the ball in a ball playing side that likes to play out the back, he will get dominated aerially. Imagine old school Burnley or old school Bolton or old school Stoke, or let's say Newcastle play against Manchester United and he play Chris Wood. He cannot beat him in the air. He just cannot, unless he's got a ridiculous vertical leap. He's just not going to be beating the likes of Chris Wood in the air. And the problem is, this division has some great aerial players. Imagine Haaland and Darwin Núñez. So this is another reason. I've got Darwin Núñez because I saw this and I saw Maguire and Martinez as the double up in defense. And I thought, aerially, Darwin Núñez is going to destroy Martinez. Over £50 million for that signing astounds me. We're not going to go into depths about all Manchester United's problems, but looking forward, Lars FPL was as a guest in the pre-Game Week 1 live stream, and his tip for everyone was treat Manchester United like a green fixture defensively. And he's absolutely spot on, because they're playing Eriksen as a CDM. They've got a centre-back who you don't want to just rely on how tall they are, but for me, you need your centre-half to at least be 6 foot or have the most ridiculous jump that you've seen. There's no correlation down this left side between Rashford and Shaw, and Dalot and Sancho do have some kind of rapport, but they're not delivering the goods. Ronaldo just stays up front and complains when the team scores. It's a team in disarray, and it's definitely a team to target. So Brentford play great structure. I would invest in their defense and not the midfield. And Tony and Mbeumo, I think, are good options. We've got a great run of fixtures coming up for Brentford there. Manchester United are a team that you probably want to attack. So Nottingham Forest, West Ham. I said earlier that West Ham can probably feel hard done by. They didn't come away with anything. 2.26 XG. That's going to be bumped up because they had a penalty as well. Arguably, it could have been a sending off as well for the Nottingham Forest player using his arm. But let's just have a look. Williams here on the line. It felt like he was higher up than that. But remember, they took the lead. So similar to what I said about the Leeds Southampton game, they took the lead on the half-time mark. So that means that for the second half, they're going to be a lot more defensive. And West Ham, you can see here, are going to be a lot more attacking. For this one, West Ham getting smashed game week 1 by Man City isn't a surprise. Did that rock their confidence? Do they? Moyes doesn't feel like he's got the squad depth, and he doesn't. And he hasn't for a couple of seasons. He's worked wonders with West Ham. The fact that he only names 8 subs out of 9, and 2 of his subs are goalkeeper, is a direct message to say, if you want us to stay as a top 8 team and dream of European and Champions League football, you got to help me out here. He's earned it. He's done wonders at West Ham, but they've got no depth. Now, they've got a striker, which is great. So Antonio goes off when he's tired, and Smacker comes on. You can see Scamaker, sorry. He almost got a cheeky rebound goal at one point. Cresswell, you can see really attacking. Great balls in. One of the biggest creators this game week. Again, this Nottingham Forest side, though, defensively, I still wouldn't trust them. It took them a lot to get their first goal from Onweniwi. He had like 3 or 4 opportunities. This was just an emotional win from Forest. They've waited, I think, what was it, 23 years. They were so loud. The crowd was pumped up. Neco Williams was putting some great balls into the box. He's on set pieces. He's on corners. He's the best 4 million that you can get to probably just sit on your bench. But against the quality side, with confidence and some finishes, I still think Nottingham Forest are going to be in a lot of trouble. It's still, for me, easily a team to target. In terms of West Ham, they still need a couple of signings. They didn't, in my opinion, play particularly bad. The first 20 minutes, Forest were all over them like a rash. The first half, you can argue, Forest were all over West Ham. But again, I think a lot of that came from the emotion and the occasion rather than the quality of Nottingham Forest. Just something that stood out with the stats. This is the passes received heat map. So again, you can see down that left side, there's a little bit for Forest, but a lot of it is in their defense compared to West Ham, who's the left wing, right wing, and right up here near the high up on the left wing. So again, I just feel as though this was an emotional victory rather than a quality victory from Forest. So the takeaway from me is I wouldn't be investing in either of the teams. Williams for 4 million, but I still think Nottingham Forest is a team to target. I think just the first game at home really G'd up the players. Final match to look at is Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur. I think Chelsea can feel ridiculously hard done by here. First goal for Spurs, you can argue it was a foul on Havertz. For me, though, personally, it was Richarlison in the eye line. He's offside. He's putting off Mendy, whatever the rule is now. But for me personally, if a player's in an offside position and he's direct, like the ball touches, I think it's Koulibaly's leg, and just like almost touches Richarlison's leg and then goes past Mendy. If it's that close and the player is offside, for me it's offside. But the second goal is even more clear-cut for me. They even stopped to check VAR on the first corner for Spurs in added time. And yeah, he pulls his hair. Romero absolutely grabs his hair and pulls it. Now, the suggestion it could be a red card, even if it's not a red card, I don't understand why VAR cannot just say it's a foul. So usually when a goal is scored and they check VR, if there's a foul in the run-up to the goal, it is therefore not a goal. You can argue that they got the corner and then won a corner, but the second corner they won was the first corner where Cucurella gets his hair pulled. So why can't they look back and say, okay, just before this corner, Cucurella's being fouled, therefore it shouldn't be a goal. Chelsea were dominant. The Spurs in the first half didn't trouble the keeper whatsoever. We have a look at the position maps. You can see just how deep they are. So you've got the right centre-back and the right wing-back. That's Romero and Royale. And you've got the left wing back and the left centre back Davis and Sessegnon, with Dyer as a standalone in the middle, but he gets support from Højbjerg and Bentancur. This is a great defensive shape. Conte has gone up there to stop them, but he didn't. Tuchel had tactically won this one. Spurs fans are not going to be bothered. I completely understand that. But remember, we're looking analytically and we're looking at the setup of these teams. You can see this is a great defensive setup from Conte. Really, really great. Son was deeper. He was almost man-marked by Reece James, who was playing at right centre-back. By the way, when Reece James goes to right wing-back, oh, wow. That's why we want him. That's why we know he's got that point ceiling. If Fofana goes to Chelsea and James nails that right wing-back slot, you're probably not going to get rid of him. But anyway, coming back here, I just love this defensive pairing of the right centre-back and the right wing-back and the left centre-back and the left wing-back. Centre-back by himself in the back three, but he's got that coverage of the two central defensive midfielders. And then you've got Kane, obviously, down the middle, and Kulusevski trying to give them an outlet. Spurs did not do well here. What changed the game? Richarlison coming on for Sessegnon and going to what looked like a 4-4-2. That's when they started to create a couple of chances. But overall, you can see Chelsea are well advanced. They were just dominant. It was a great Chelsea display. You can argue about them not getting enough goals or the attacking threat's not there. Well, they've gone against Spurs and they've scored 2 goals. We know defensively, Chelsea, by the way, now have got a great run of fixtures. So defensively, Cucurella at 5 million, if you're not scared about his minutes, could be a fantastic price. Reece James is a standout there, 6 million, right wing back. If Fofana goes for 4.5, amazing. I would probably have the double up at Chelsea. They've got a great run of fixtures. Defensively, they're solid. In terms of attack, Raheem Sterling is just too much money. He's 10 million. He did get an assist, but we just know Chelsea's just not, under Tuchel, they're not a free-flowing goal side. And for 10 million, that's just a great game, great assist, lovely. Kante gives it to Sterling. Sterling gives it to James. It's a goal. Great. But for 10 million, I'm not going to go there. And I'm not going to go for Havertz. And I'm not going to... Now, Mount, I mentioned earlier people being in his side. When I spend money on a midfielder, I like them to be a forward midfielder. Think of Salah. He's more like a left forward than a midfielder, right? Mount is an attacking midfielder. This was against Spurs, though. They've got Leeds next. I said earlier about Leeds. Leeds are leaky. And they don't have Phillips to stop the opposition central attacking midfielder, which is Mount. So if I've got Mason Mount and I've got nothing to do and I've got 2 free transfers, I might consider taking him out. But if you just give him one more game against Leeds, it could pay off. If you've got other things to do, Mount wouldn't be my priority out. In terms of Spurs, they went to Stamford Bridge to try and not lose this game. Mission accomplished. But it was more poor decisions from the officials rather than them actually having a great performance. So just before we have a look at the fixtures and have a look at some players that we might want to back, my own team will come out in a team selection video later on in the week, and I will be streaming again 8 a.m. UK time on Saturday. I hope to see you then. I hope to see you in the next video as well when we look at my team. Spoiler, it hasn't been great. The Liverpool game hasn't played yet. So right now, I've got Darwin, Salah, and Trent coming up. Darwin, please, you need to save me from a Gabriel Jesus disaster class going on. So anyway, let's look at Spurs and Wolves. Defensively, Perisic is down to 5.4 million now, which is great. But for me, the wing backs are too volatile for their price. Sessegnon, if you want to risk a 4.5 million wing back, maybe even Royale, because Doherty didn't even come on the pitch. But defensively, you'll be back in Spurs against Wolves, because we talked earlier about Wolves' lack of attack, their toothless attack. But Spurs, I think you can back them here. Wolves conceded against Leeds. They could have lost as well against Fulham. So if you've got Kane and you've held him since game week 1 and Son, then you would hold him here against Wolves. I think should be an easy win here. Maybe I would say 3-0 to Spurs. Palace and Aston Villa, going to be a close one. Palace, even though they lost in game week 1 against Arsenal, they should have got at least 1 goal there. They haven't played Liverpool yet, so they started with Arsenal and Liverpool. Liverpool hasn't played yet, but the Arsenal game, they didn't shame themselves. They were arguably on top for the second half there. Aston Villa still sort of finding themselves, defensively weak, but if Zaha, Elise, Eze, they're all on form. At Palace as well, I'm going to say 2-1 to Crystal Palace. Everton, Notts Forest. This one just feels like it could be a 0-0. We said earlier about Everton being so compact and got no striker. Notts Forest will sit back. They don't really take their chances, or they're not particularly creative. The great closing now, I think it was O'Brien who was man of the match, was absolutely everywhere. But it's not going to be the same pressure from Everton as it was from West Ham. West Ham have a higher quality of side, and they've got some attackers to put the ball in the back of the net. This feels like a 0-0 or 1-1. Both don't have clinical strikers. Everton don't even have a striker. Sorry, Rondon, if he does play the next one. But you guys know what I mean. Like, attacking-wise, Everton are not great. Defensively, they're okay. Defensively, I think we were worried about them, but I think they've got a bit of depth there. I think defensively, they're not too bad. They shouldn't be as too worried about Nottingham Forest. But Forest, I still think, are a team to target with your defenders or with your attackers. So this one is a 0-0 or 1-1 for me. Fulham against Brentford. This one's going to be really tight. It depends which Fulham comes out. They're at home again. If they're going to give us that high-pressing, exciting team attack that they did against Liverpool, this could be like a 2-2. The reason I'm saying like 2-2 is because Brentford are great defensively, but Fulham are not good defensively. Like, I can see them leaking a lot of goals. They sat back against Wolves and got the point. They attacked against Liverpool and conceded. Depends what the tactic is against Brentford at home. They might fancy themselves to get 3 points here. They need to get as many points as possible against sides that they think that they can get them from. And Brentford is probably one of the teams that Fulham thinks we could get something here. And Brentford have Mbeumo and Tony up front. Creatively is an issue, I think, for Brentford. But defensively, they're solid. So I'm going to say 2-2 for this one. I think there's going to be some goals here. Speaking of goals, Leicester Southampton. Leicester concede, but Leicester score. Leicester have a really good attack. I really like Leicester's attack. Southampton seem to be able to score goals. They scored 2 against Leeds, but I said earlier the issue is Leeds have a weak defense. Defensively awful. This, I'm not going to go and say it's going to be like a 9-0 again, Leicester Southampton, but I think this is going to be like 5-2. I think this is going to have some goals in it. So if you've got Maddison as your 8 million midfielder, this is probably the game you were waiting for in game week 3. In terms of Southampton, I just wouldn't be touching any of the players. This has got goals. I think Leicester's going to get the win here. Bournemouth Arsenal. First game against Villa. Villa were bad. Bournemouth got the result. 4-0 against City. They did the low block, but Arsenal are looking so good. Great against Palace. Amazing against Leicester. The attackers are on fire. I don't see a lot of threat coming from Bournemouth's attack. I think this is a 2-0 to Arsenal in this one. Confident, clear. We've all tripled up on Arsenal, I reckon, because there's quality throughout the side. There's a 5 million Ramsdale, there's a 4.5 million Saliba, or 5.1 million Zinchenko, or a 5 million Gabriel. That you've got your Saka, your Martinelli, you've got your Gabriel Jesus. You've got even Ødegaard might get something this week. Like, there's quality throughout that team. They're looking really good. Charging for top 4. Comfortable 2 or 3-0 victory here. Leeds Chelsea. Again, Leeds can maybe get a goal here if Chelsea don't shut up shop, which they usually can. But I think this is going to be a comfortable Chelsea win here. This is where Leeds are going to have a big chance. They've had Wolves. I said earlier they've had Wolves and they've had Southampton in the first 2 games. 2 of the best fixtures you can probably ask for your defenders. It's not going to be the same case as Chelsea. I'm going to say this is going to be 3-1 to Chelsea. West Ham and Brighton. Brighton seems to be, I think, West Ham's bogey team here, but Brighton's so good as a structure. West Ham, some individual brilliance, great team. I think it's going to be really tight. I'm going to put this as 1-1. I think West Ham will finally get a goal. They'll get a goal against Brighton here, but Brighton's not going to get smashed. I don't think any game week I'm going to sit here and think Brighton's going to lose 5-0. Even against Manchester City away from home, I think it might be 2 or 3-0, but they don't score a lot of goals. West Ham may be lacking a bit of confidence. They'll want a reply at home in the next game, but I'm going to go here for 1-1. Newcastle City, even though I bigged up and I said Newcastle's been great, defensively massively improved, it's still Manchester City, and I'm still going to say 2-0 to Manchester City because defensively, I don't need to talk about it. We know how good Man City are. I just don't think Newcastle are going to get thumped. Man City probably not going to concede, and they're probably going to win. Yeah, that's simple. 2-0, maybe 2-1, maybe if I'm being generous, but 2-0 is where I'm going to put my hat. Speaking of thumped, Liverpool, Manchester United. If the game goes ahead, guys, make sure you've got a good vice captain because a game's been called off between these before when the fans were angry. I don't think they're any less angry now following that 4-0 against Brentford and the deep-rooted issues at the football club. If Liverpool do what they did to Manchester United last year, it's going to be crazy. That's why Salah's my captain. I look at Newcastle City and I look at United Liverpool. It seems crazy now to be thinking I think Salah's the best captaincy option this week. But Manchester United are in complete disarray. They have no idea what Ten Hag wants to do. Eriksen is CDM, Martinez in defence, nothing down the left side, Sancho not delivering down the right. I think that, who knows, 4-0. Another 4-0 would be crazy, but it could be on the cards. Thank you for watching today's video, guys. Please leave a like and subscribe. That would be awesome. Hopefully, you've taken something from this video. It's the fact that we have a look at not just the player stats, but the team stats and the shapes to give us a better idea when we look at a team and say, okay, they're really weak down the left and they're about to play a team that's strong down the right. Maybe that's a player that I want to sign for this game week. Hopefully, you've taken something from it. If you have, let me know in the comments below, or any analysis or points or formations or anything that you noticed from this game week that I've missed out, put it in the comments below. Remember, my team selection video will be out in a couple of days, and the live stream will be Saturday morning, 8 a.m. UK time. Thanks a lot, guys. As always, have a good one.